This is Tahira with Simply Schoolhouse, and we're continuing our Homeschooling High School Series. Thank you for tuning in. Our interview today is with Angie, and Angie is just a really amazing woman who, her and her husband have homeschooled their three children. Two are in high school, about to go to college. They're both seniors, and she has one in middle school who will be, pretty soon going into high school. So we are happy to hear what she has to say today. She goes into the difference between the lower grades and high school years, how she prepared her children for college. She talks a little about the switcheroo that she thought that one would be more college bound and the other one would do something different. And they sort of switched, and the one she thought would be very STEM heavy decided to go into a wonderful trade. So you'll hear all about that and more. Tune in and put your comments and questions below. Look forward to giving you more content like this with other high school interviews so that you could be confident too that you can do this. It's not, they say rocket science, but it's not complicated. There are definitely steps you need to take, but it's doable, and your children will be so blessed, rewarded, and enriched by it.
Okay. All
Okay,
right.
this is Tahira with Simply Schoolhouse, and I have Angie McFarlane here, and she is going to offer a wealth of wisdom and experience on her homeschooling journey, particularly homeschooling high school. Hi, Angie, how are you?
Good morning. I'm well, thank you.
Good, good, good. So why don't we just go ahead and get started? Can you first tell us how many years have you been homeschooling?
Oh, wow. It seems like forever, but then it seems like hardly at all. So,
Yeah.
um, all 12 years. So, yeah, my oldest two, my children have always been homeschooled. So 12, 13 years.
Okay, wonderful. Yeah, that's a long time. What was the determining factor in your family's decision to homeschool?
My husband was the determining factor. Actually, before we got married, he told me that when we had children, he would like them to be homeschooled because he had met, the homeschool family with, I think they had like 7 children, and
Mhm.
he was so impressed by them that he felt that was the way to go.
Nice, nice. And that was here in the States?
Yes,
Okay, all right. Now, homeschooling high school is more complex than homeschooling lower grades. Did you ever consider enrolling your children in traditional high school after eighth grade, or did you always know that you were going to homeschool through high school?
I always knew I was going to homeschool through high school. It was, in my mind, never an option.
Hmm.
Even when people asked me, I was like, nope. And people would tell me things like, oh, yeah, my children act up. I tell them I want to send them to public school.
Yeah.
I never even used that because I knew it wasn't going to happen. They
Yeah.
all the way through high school.
And how did your children feel about that?
They were absolutely fine with
They were
it.
good. It's great to have such a strong conviction and know exactly what you want to do because that is a time period, that is a point where, parents can go either way. So that's
Right.
wonderful that you always had that.
And actually, my children have had some interaction with public school children when they've had some in it because, participating with them on some things. And they're just like, yeah, no,
Hmm.
they're, they're very
They're
happy.
good. They're good. Yeah. Yeah. So you have two high schoolers
I
who
do.
are about to graduate,
I
and that must have been quite a journey. Looking back, what did you find easiest and what did you find most challenging?
um hmm. So I would say easiest would just be I guess what we just talked about was their willingness to be continued high school. I did not have any issues. I didn't have anybody ever saying, "Oh, mom, I feel like I'm missing out. I want to go to, regular high school." that's never been an issue. So just their willingness and their cooperation to continue homeschooling, because I believe they really see the value of it, has definitely been the easiest. I've never had those struggles. Um,
Yeah, and that's a hard thing because
mhm,
that's something that takes time to develop, and having your children have a love for learning, but also loving the environment that they're learning in, and
right.
wanting that, not feeling like they're missing out or need something else. That's something that definitely gets established early on, and it's a hard thing.
Yeah.
It's good.
I think the hardest thing has, wow, what has the hardest thing been? I think just navigating everything that you have to do in high school. And I'll admit, I wasn't really prepared. I mean, I knew that there were things that I had to do, but just coordinating all of it and making sure everything was taken care of, the whole college prep thing, I think that's been the most challenging.
It is a juggling act,
Mm-hmm.
because it's essentially one or two people doing the role of, many different things that are done to prepare a child to go to high school, to college in a traditional setting. You have the guidance counselors, you have, all sorts of other personnel that help. And in homeschool, yes, it falls on the parents' shoulders.
Right.
So, how did you incorporate their God-given interests into their learning? And did their interests change over the years, or did they always know what they wanted to do throughout and after high school?
So that was actually a pretty easy part. If they told me they were interested in something, I would find the resources for them to, take a class in it, see how they liked it, or try to find an activity that would foster that interest. Because I've always been of the mind, and I've told them numerous times, you do not have to go to a 4-year university. If that's what you want to do, great. But if not, find something that you really want to do. So, like with my daughter, when she, you know, showed an interest in, making clothes, crafting, things like that, I came across a sewing class and said, "Hey, do you want to take this?" And she was like, "Oh, yeah." And she just took off from there. So that's how. And then as the interest developed, and she kind of started to think about, well, what do I really want to do? Um, you know, we just kept pursuing that area and gave her the time to be able to do those things. And that was very helpful. I mean, we did like a career class to try to help them narrow it down, which part of that was interviewing somebody in the field where that they were interested in going to. And my daughter, that was, I think, very solidifying for her that, okay, yeah, this is what I really want to do. For my son, on the other hand, he, you know, took a couple of classes, and the one thing was architecture that he wanted to do. He loved the drawing part of it and that aspect. But when it came to other things, again, he took some classes, he talked to somebody in the field. And after all that, he was like, this is not what I want to do, you know? And then he said, oh, I want to, want to be an engineer. So he took an intro engineering class. This is not what I want to do. Again, because there were aspects of it that he really liked, but
Mhm.
then there were aspects that he was like, no, I don't want to spend my time doing that, until he figured out, you know what, this is what I wanted to do. So he, ended up deciding he wants to go to trade school, because that allows him to learn what he wants to learn without taking, like a bunch of extra classes that you would have to take like at
Oh,
a
yeah.
university. So, that was it. And like I said, so once I found out what things they were interested in, I started focusing on gearing them towards activities and classes that fostered that. And, those classes really help them determine, yeah, I really want to do this, or no, this really isn't for me, which
Mhm.
I think is great because when I was in college, I changed majors probably about 4 times.
Yeah.
I went into college thinking I wanted to do, I came out on the complete other side of the spectrum.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that was one of the reasons I told them, do what you want to do because it could very possibly change.
Yeah, that's great. That's great advice. And see, that's the benefit of, I believe, homeschooling because they have the opportunity, the time, the flexibility to explore things where in a traditional setting, you have what you have, and that's pretty much what you do. Whatever, is offered, whatever is provided by that school in that time frame, that's what you're going to take.
Right,
And like you said, you apply for college, you go, that's the and the thing that's usually the next step. And yeah, if you don't like it, you're enrolling in that field or in that track for classes. If you don't like it, then you have to switch classes. And you're
right,
right, you can end up changing over and over again. So for him to, and that's a great strategy, um, that you had for them to do, to find someone in the field, interview them, and even maybe spend a day in their environment,
right.
and see how that is. Who did your daughter speak with in the craft? And you know,
There is actually a woman, and she has a business that she owns where she makes particularly like modest clothes, like gym skirts. She'll make swimsuits that are modest. She used to actually, her shop used to be in South Jersey. She moved to Florida. And so when I was thinking, and that's, what the direction my daughter wants to go is in modest clothing design. And so when we were thinking of, well, who can you interview? I actually have a friend who has an aunt that's a seamstress here in New Jersey. But but this other person, I was like, you know what? I think that's more towards what she wants to do.
yeah, yeah.
Let me reach out to her, because I had bought some things from her and see if she'd be willing
Mm-hmm.
enough. When I reached out to her, she said, I would love to. She's like, I think it's great that there's, someone young who is interested in picking up and continuing on, with modest clothing design. So I just reached out to her and she was very willing to interview her and talk to her about
Yeah.
what she does. And she didn't even know there
Yeah.
were like Christian fashion design programs in the country.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. That's great. And that's how my oldest also found, her interest. Um, I also thought, having some type of career program would be wonderful. And I had started lining up people. We we didn't get so far in the program. Actually, it was the first the first uh, interview that we set up. We had a gentleman who was a pilot come
Mm-hmm.
to come to he set it up at the airport, and we invited a bunch of homeschoolers to go and see the plane, hear what being a pilot was all about. So he sort of did an in-service. It was more like an in-service or just a workshop to expose them to the field. And she was like, that's what I want. So, and she has a lot of interest, which I'm sure your children do as well. But
Right.
but that's the idea, and that's great. Let them try things out, let them talk to people in the field, let them, feel it out and see what they want to do.
Right. Because they have an interest in something doesn't mean that that's what they want to make a career out of.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's very important to help them try to narrow down, like, okay, these are your interests, but what do you really want to do? What do you want to spend, 40 plus hours a week of your time actually
Yeah,
do?
that's right. What was the trade that you said your son chose?
He wants to do auto technology and welding.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great. Wonderful. The trades, you're starting out without all of those college loans to pay
Yeah.
back.
Yeah.
You're getting hands-on experience, and
Mhm.
the trades are very profitable,
Yes,
very
they,
profitable.
yeah.
So
Interesting is that they flipped on me. I thought he was the one who was going to
yeah,
go to a 4-year college, and she was the one who was, because for a long time she was like, I don't want to go to college. I don't want to go. I don't want to go. And then they flipped. And all of a sudden she's like, she wants to go because she realized, said, oh, that's where I can, learn what I really want to do.
yeah,
He was just like, yeah, I don't want to do that.
yeah. Great. Uh, my youngest is sending me notes while I'm on Zoom with you so that he doesn't interrupt.
Hello, sweetheart.
Hi. Yeah.
Unfortunately, we can't hug through Zoom.
Yeah, he kept asking me from the sidelines, can I please say hello? I'm just like, give me a minute, but okay. Yeah, go ahead. You can do that. So, that's great. Wonderful. When did you begin to transition to the college application process, and how did you help your children decide which university they wanted to attend, which you sort of already answered how you helped them to narrow down their career path?
Part of me feels like not soon enough in terms of the college application process. So, trade school is pretty simple. Like, my son, he took a 3 week. I found out about a 3 week course through one of the trade schools. And he did that over the summer, which really solidified that auto technology was what
Yeah,
he,
yeah.
and it was a free 3 week course for juniors going into their senior year. And so that was great. With trade school, there's a lot of different ones that you can go to, various ones, because we're moving. He won't be going to that one. We did find, and so it's just a matter of kind of looking around, seeing which one has your
Yeah.
one has your what you want to do. And so that was pretty, I was like, you can really go anywhere for that. Any school that has those programs, it's pretty much going to be the same.
Mhm.
Um, as far as my daughter, what I did, and apparently, unbeknownst to me, she was doing the same thing, was I just looked up, I Googled Christian fashion design schools because I didn't know if there were any in the country either.
Right.
And when the list came up, and there aren't that many, I started looking at different ones, location, and, kind of looking into program. And I narrowed it down to two that that I felt like, okay, these are the top two choices. And when you don't have a lot of choice, a lot of options,
Mhm.
the choice is easy.
Yeah, it
A
sort
lot
of makes it easier. Yeah.
don't have a lot of options. So I gave her the list and said, these are the schools that have the program that you're looking for. Look them over, look into it, and make a decision about which one you are interested in going to. And she came out with one. Her number one choice was my number one choice.
That's
So
wonderful.
that worked beautifully because, it's in the state where we're planning to move. And, their application process was pretty, and it's pretty flexible. Like, I mean, I think she could like start the application process now and still be fine.
Hmm.
There, and I've noticed that with a couple of schools, like you can apply almost up till the semester starts.
Okay.
So, but looking at the deadlines, and that was the school she wanted to go for, and that was the only one we went with. She didn't
Okay.
apply to any other schools,
Yeah.
and her notification of acceptance was very quick. It was a 2 week turnaround,
Oh, wow, that's great.
the application. So of course it's going to vary by school.
Hmm.
Um, Obviously, and even like community colleges, obviously you don't have to do a whole long application process.
Right, right.
They're simpler. Um, but it was actually pretty easy. I mean, she ended up doing a lot of it on her own, which of course is a good thing, is we moving them towards adulthood.
Independent.
Yes.
Independent.
So
Hmm.
it was it was pretty painless. But
Okay.
once she decided and accepted, it's like, okay, that's it.
Yeah, yeah. So you're just taking whatever the school has as requirements and then following that step by step.
Yes.
All right. How did you find the testing requirements?
So that was actually one of the interesting things because they did not take the standardized, they didn't take the SAT or the ACT. I knew that um, a lot of schools were moving away from requirements.
Yes, yeah.
So
They
when my son told me that he did not want to go, because I'll be honest, last year, their junior year, I kind of missed the deadline.
mm-hmm,
It was like in the back of my mind, like,
mm-hmm.
oh, they need to do this, they need to do this. And then it just kind of went by. And I was like, oh my goodness.
I can relate to
Oops.
that.
So I was like, okay, I think I know, I'm pretty sure they can still take it their senior year. I'm like, oh my goodness. But then when my son was very adamant that he did not want to go to a 4-year university, and, he wanted to go to trade school, I was like, okay, great. You don't need to take it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, they'll take it if you have it, but it's not a requirement.
Mm-hmm.
And we did last year actually narrow down where my daughter wanted to go. And when I looked at their requirements, they did not require it either.
Wonderful.
All they require is a math placement test before she gets there. Um, if she hadn't taken the ACT or SAT, but they don't require it. And so once I saw they didn't require it, I was like, beautiful.
Yeah,
We do not have to be
because that's
concerned.
not even a representation of the child
It's
anyway, and
really,
that's what they're learning, you know, the child's what they've participated in, their volunteer work, their projects, the things
mm-hmm,
they've been involved in community. How do they handle, pressure? How do they handle due dates? How do they handle, their schoolwork and all of those things.
right,
Really, that's a clearer picture and representation of your child and not necessarily, just a standardized test and, oh, yes, this is no, because that does not mean that once they get there, they're going to be able to perform or function. So
exactly,
much better to see what have they done over the 4 years and how were they able to handle and complete the tasks that they had to. That's a much better way to view the child.
right, right.
Good.
I
Okay.
was because it saved money too, because
Of course.
I was glad, we only went with one school with my daughter and she got in.
Yeah, because all
Because,
those application
the
fees and everything.
application fees and just the extra time you're spending all this time filling out all this applications. And I mean, on one hand, it's a reality. When you go, you pursue a job, you may have to fill out several applications, but
Mhm.
a job application isn't usually extensive as a college application. So
Yeah, great. Wonderful. Um, Based on the high school journey with your two older children, is there anything that you would do differently with your younger one?
absolutely. The main thing is the looking into the financial aid aspect of it. Because I mean, obviously, if you go to a university, the school that she's going to is private, it's a lot of money.
Mm,
And so I didn't really start thinking about financial aid or scholarships until this year.
yeah, yeah.
And I was like, whoa, oh my goodness. So, and I've seen people say you can start looking for scholarships as early as middle school. Some you say there are some that you can actually get even as early in grade school,
Yeah, yeah.
college. And that was one thing that I did feel like I was pretty unprepared for, was just the whole, looking for scholarships, finding out about the FAFSA and getting that filled out. And I mean, that was pretty simple to fill out, but, just, excuse me, just understanding the nuances of that.
Hmm.
So with my youngest, I will definitely be looking into that.
I may put up some information later on the accounts that I was told about, and I mentioned it in the last interview that I did, where they started saving. It's a savings account, and it doubles every 5 years. I'm not sure exactly how that works, but I'll get some information on that and I'll put that information out there because by the time this individual had their student, in senior year and then transitioning into college, everything was paid out of that account, and
Mhm.
there were still things left over. Maybe you know about it. Um,
No.
mhm. So I'll definitely look into that a little bit more. So since you have educated every grade level now, wow,
Mm.
what advice do you have for parents of middle schoolers?
Oh boy, middle schoolers are interesting.
Mm.
Just if they start to show an interest in something, again, let them pursue it.
Yeah.
Let them, take a class or maybe join in a club or, maybe an extracurricular activity where they can check it out and see if they really like it. Or, maybe it wasn't all what they think, because especially with middle schoolers, they change their mind every 2 seconds. I mean, even as we get older, we change our minds about what we want to do, or we think we want something and then we realize no. So, definitely give them the opportunity to pursue the things that they're interested in, and just really start prepping yourself for the whole financial aid
Yeah.
thing. And how are we going to pay? I mean, a lot of people do that before their child's even born. How are we going to pay for college? But the main thing, I mean, different families go different routes, but look into the information,
Hmm.
find the information and see what's going to work with your family. Because that's where like I said, I didn't even know anything about it. I didn't, ever, only other than hearing about the 529 plan.
I think that may be the one that I'm referring to.
Yeah, I've heard about it, but I don't know anything about it.
Mhm.
I didn't know anything about where to find scholarships or how to find them, or, knowing the difference between a school that does scholarship stacking or one that doesn't, because I didn't realize that was a thing. So your child could choose a school and you find out, what your financial aid package is, and you're like, oh, let me start applying all these scholarships. And all it does is take away from what they're offering you.
Mm,
They don't apply those scholarships to what you are supposed to pay. They start applying it to what they're offering you. So I'm trying to remember, scholarship stacking is the one where they do allow you to, where
okay.
any scholarships you get applies to what your contribution is, which thankfully the school that, my daughter has chosen is like that. But the other one, I forget what the other term is, but that's something very important to know,
Yeah, yeah.
and I had never heard of that. I didn't even know that was a thing. So really just start looking into the whole process, you know,
Mm-hmm.
get to understand financial aid, get to understand scholarships, and, how those work, and the schools that they're looking at, what their policies about scholarships and grants are. That's very important to
Yeah.
understand.
Yeah, that's great advice because like you said, each school, they operate differently in how they're going to award those things. So knowing about it sooner rather than later is good. But what a blessing that, you were able to tap into that and have it all work out. So
Yes, absolutely.
that's wonderful. Any tips to offer elementary school students, just in general?
Elementary school, it's really kind of the same thing. Let them pursue their interests,
Mhm.
and don't be upset if they decide to change, because they may have started out playing piano, but now they want to try trumpet. And I know sometimes as parents, we get in this, no, you said you want to do this, you need to do this, but you maybe you find out that they're more skilled at the trumpet, that they have more of a, natural talent or ability for that. So I think that's just really important, even elementary. Don't limit yourself and don't think that you have to do what the school system does. If the
Yeah,
school system was so successful, you wouldn't have so many people homeschooling.
exactly.
And more each
Every
year.
year it's
And
growing.
just growing immensely. So, don't limit yourself or think that you have to be limited by what the school system says. Now, obviously, as we know, that depends on the state.
Yeah.
You have to follow your state regulations, but after that, let them pursue their interests.
hmm Yeah, I agree. Elementary school is the time to expose them to
Mm-hmm.
different interests. And then as they get older, you're going to sort of, narrow it down and be more
Right.
specific as they establish what their end goal is, what their, what they want. And then they can sort of start steering things in that direction. But yeah, absolutely. In elementary school, let them try many things.
Yeah.
hmm All right. Is there anything else that you'd like to share about your homeschooling high school journey or anything about your children's experiences?
I'm just one. I can't believe I'm almost done with two.
I know.
I remember when they graduated eighth grade, and I was just like, oh my goodness, 4 more years left, 4 more years left. And then I'm just like, what happened to
I
those
know.
four
It
years?
flies by. It goes
Yeah,
fast.
it
It
just
goes very fast.
really does. So, and the other thing is, don't wait till the last minute to do your transcripts.
hmm
You know,
And keep up with them.
keep up with your transcripts. And I'm so guilty of that. I am sometimes such a procrastinator. It'll be one of those things where I keep telling myself, you need to do it, you need to do it, you need to do it. And thankfully, what um, got me going with it was that they took a class at a college and I needed to
You
submit
needed it.
a
Yeah.
transcript. So I had to go ahead and do it. And so because once you do it, it's just so much easier it's
Yeah.
so easy to update it.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be fancy. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to have this fancy template. I literally took a Word document and put tables on there
hmm
and did everything. I don't have a fancy like Excel spreadsheet
hmm
or anything like that. No, I
You
just
just got it down. You got it down.
got it down, did it, calculated the GPA, and it was acceptable, to universities and anytime I've needed to submit it, I needed to the boys they play sports, they play tennis, so I had to submit transcripts for that.
hmm
And it was just because it was already done,
Yeah.
it was
Yeah.
very easy to just make the little changes I need to make and submit it. So don't wait to the last minute to do transcripts and keep the transcripts,
hmm
because you never know when you might need it. You don't know what they're going to do in the future. Even my son, right now, he's going to trade school. That's his plan. But what if he decides at some point that he does want to get a 4 year degree? He's going to need that transcript,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know? So that's very important documentation.
hmm Yeah. Absolutely. And yeah, definitely keeping up with it. You've done a great job. You're still doing a great job. It's wonderful. And you're not alone with, okay, I have to catch up in this area or that area because there are other areas that you know that you're excelling in and you're doing far beyond what, the typical thing would be to do. So that's normal. That's normal to have, one thing that you're like, okay, I have to address this a little more. I mean, we have a lot to do. We have a lot on our plates, and it's great to be able to access resources and outsource things, and that's even, a service I know that HSLDA offers, doing the
Right.
transcript. So there are ways to get it done.
Actually, they don't anymore.
Oh, I didn't know that.
No, because I called them about
Okay.
that earlier in the year. And they said they actually just, and now they do have like articles and documents on their website
Mhm.
or transcripts that you can look at. But as
Okay.
far as like actually like somebody helping you and going over your transcript with you, they don't do that anymore.
Okay. All right. Good to know. That's good to know.
Yeah, because I sure did call. I was like, I was like, I just want somebody to look it over. And she was like, oh,
hmm
sorry, we don't offer that service anymore. You know,
Okay.
but they do have the information on their website.
Which, yeah, they offer a lot of information. That's
Yeah,
always a good resource.
they do.
And one of the last things I'll bring up is I know you had your children in Civil Air Patrol.
Hmm.
How do you feel and that's heavily based or heavily geared towards leadership? How do you
Right.
feel that helped them or prepared them, or what do you think about that program? And do you recommend it?
You know, to say that I recommend Civil Air Patrol on a whole is hard,
Mm,
simply because I'm only familiar with the squadron that they are a part of.
got you.
And different squadrons can be very different, of course, based on the leadership. I think the squadron that they are a part of is wonderful. The leaders are excellent. They really focus on integrity and character.
That's good.
And it's a smaller squadron. I know some of the other squadrons are quite large, but this one is much smaller, and it's great. I think it definitely has helped with their leadership skills.
Nice.
Helped with, you know, just the understanding, working within an organization, and the different parts, and learning the skills that they're learning. I definitely, if you can find a good squadron, I definitely recommend it.
Okay,
You
because go ahead.
having even just having a uniform, because I see all these things now where people have this difficulty understanding that when you are in certain environments, it requires you to appear a certain way.
Hmm.
Now of course you have the places that take it to an extreme and want to like completely squash your who you.
Right, right.
So I'm not talking about that, but just understanding, yes, you need to be presentable. You need to look a certain way. You cannot go to work in your pajamas.
Yeah, yeah,
You cannot go to
absolutely.
work in, a lace halter top.
Hmm,
I think
hmm, hmm.
I had when I worked outside the home, I had a coworker who did that. Oh my goodness. So, I really, understanding discipline, and I do think it's been very beneficial, as well as just the connections that they've been able to
Hmm.
make. You know, again, this squadron, I really like it because they had an activity last year where they said, let's talk about what you want to do as an adult.
Yeah.
Let's do this exercise where you go through, and you say, okay, what is the job you want? How much do you make? How much, will you make? How much is an apartment? How much is your food? What about entertainment? And it really walked them through those steps to be thinking of, is what I want to do in line with the lifestyle that I say I want to have.
Hmm.
So I felt that was, and they asked the parents to come and participate as well to help them out with it. So I felt that was really great. And it was very beneficial. I really appreciated that.
Awesome.
So I love their squadron, and I think it's been very helpful. Like I said, I don't know if the other squadrons are like that. I've heard that they can be a little
Okay.
different.
Yeah, I was thinking about it for my children, particularly my oldest one. But I've been thinking about it long and not really placing her in one because her schedule is always so full that
Yeah,
it's like, but I think, that leadership aspect, it's great to have children put that into practice. So, I mean, they're getting that elsewhere in other places too, but I just know that that was one of their main goals, right?
right.
Hmm.
Yeah. And then, finally, I would say, um, really just as a mother, because we put out so much and we do so much. And as a homeschooling mom, just to have that much extra on our plates. Don't take time for yourself.
Yeah,
You
that's
know, take
important.
time for yourself.
That's good.
Do what you need to be healthy, because if you're sick, you're not going to be there for your family. Um, and that's something that it's been difficult to navigate through, getting older and going through all those wonderful little changes, and you know just trying to navigate those things. And you think, oh, high school, they'll be a little bit more independent, I'll have a lot more time, and then it's like, oh, it didn't work out that way. Because there are just
Yeah,
kind of other things that jumped on that filled the
yeah,
space.
yeah.
And there are some things that's just been a struggle, so really try to, make the time to take care of yourself, do what you need to do to be healthy, to be strong, to be, not just physically, emotionally, most importantly, spiritually,
Yeah, yeah.
for your children and for your husband, because, it's easy to get caught up in all of the things that we need to do. And next thing you know, you're just like, whoa,
Mhm.
where am I at? How did this
Yeah,
happen?
that's right. That's right. That's so good. And that cannot be overstated.
Mm-hmm.
We definitely have to make sure that we're good in order to help others. We
Yeah.
can't help if we're broken down, worn out, overwhelmed, could barely, find time to shower. Like we have
Right.
to. And self-care isn't just, what can I do to pamper myself right now? No. Sometimes self-care is like, what can I delegate?
Yeah.
What can I remove from my schedule?
Yeah.
How can I pare things down? How can I simplify things? There's all different ways to do and implement self-care, but it has to be a thing in order
Mhm.
to be able to really be successful on this journey.
Right. Right. Because you're not neglecting your family. And I think that, even for me, it's like that was I need to be there for my family. I need to be there for my family. And yes, we do, but you need to take care of yourself so that you can be there,
Exactly.
for your family, and setting, of course, we all know setting those boundaries. Like you said, this year I went into this, that was something I did really well. I went into this year saying these things have to come off my schedule because I know that I'm already going to have other things that I need to focus my time and energy on. So I'm not going to be able to do these things this year, So I came into the year letting people know
Yeah.
I will
Yeah.
not be doing that this year.
That's so good. That's so good. And then I know we both have that biblical foundation that
Mm-hmm.
we both build our homeschool on, and that strength, that is such a that's an amazing anchor.
Man,
Um,
yes.
so,
Yeah.
everyone has their own way that they bring strength into the journey, but I know for you and I know for myself as well, that the biblical aspect is is very critical. So, yeah. Well, thank you so much. Thank
You're
you so
welcome.
much for your time and sharing your insight, sharing your journey, sharing, what you've gone through and, how others can learn from your experience. I really appreciate your time, and I know others will too.
All right. Thank you for the opportunity.
Yes, absolutely. Have a wonderful day, Angie. Talk to you soon.
Thanks, Tara.
Okay, bye-bye.